Na 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 moonlight, na 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 in the sky, na 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 you say, na 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 popcorn, na 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 moonlight, na 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 in the sky, na 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 you say, na 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 popcorn.
What's up, guys? Fantasy Aristotle here with Slump Buster. We are back again for episode 2 of our Hard Knocks review. So let's just jump right into it. So this episode was still pretty big on the COVID. They brought up testing again. They brought up protocols, all that fun stuff. So in lieu of the games missing, I feel like they are going to lean on coronavirus pretty hard unless something major happens with one of the teams. I don't see any major news happening. So it's pretty much going to be coronavirus-centric with a little bit of football here and there. Other than that, it was a pretty Rams-centric episode. Last episode, I feel, was pretty 50-50 on the screen time, but this time it was pretty Rams-centric. So we're going to have a lot more on the Rams side to review than the Chargers side. So right off the bat, there was the opening scene with Sean McVay coaching up the team. And he did say that teams are going to be having a lot of pre-snap penalties. And while I agree with him, I think it's going to be actually a step further. There's going to be a lot of penalties, defensive holding, offensive holding, false start. There's going to be a lot of penalties just because typically in the preseason, that's when all of the penalties happen. So if you do watch the games, you notice the refs throw a lot more flags. They're calling stuff out. The refs are getting into game shape. The team is getting into game shape. There's no preseason games this year. So I feel like it's not just going to be the first game. I think it'll trickle into games 2 and 3. But generally, I think by week 4, we should be good where penalties are no longer so abundant. But I agree with Sean McVay. There are going to be a lot of pre-snap penalties just because, they haven't played football since last January if you made the playoffs, last December if you did not. Also, they did get about 3 players, some limelight on the Rams. They touched on Aaron Donald just a smidge, not too much, but they did go into a little bit more depth with 3 players on the Rams: Jalen Ramsey, Jared Goff, and Andrew Whitworth. So Ramsey first, they showed us him house shopping and all that because he does plan on signing an extension with the Rams. I could see that happening as well. Just how much is going to be the question. He's one of the top corners in the league, so he's going to demand a lot of money. Do the Rams have that? We're not too sure. They did have the pay scandal, or not really scandal, but situation with Gurley and Clay Matthews, where they didn't pay them $2 million for signing bonus or roster bonus or something like that. So we'll see what the Rams can get done with him. He did say, though, which I felt like was a pretty funny part of the episode, was him being traded from Jacksonville to Los Angeles, one of the best days of his life. So Jacksonville, just another parting shot on you guys. Then we'll get into Goff. So they kind of just showed off his backyard. He said he owns a bunch of land, and he wanted to put a basketball court in. He ended up putting a golf course, a chipping green in. And I wanted to touch on this because he said he wanted to put a basketball court, but couldn't because he couldn't do it via his contract. And that's pretty common. So Patrick Mahomes just signed his $500 million deal, and he is no longer allowed to play basketball. So it's just a lot of things that teams work into the contracts for the players where they can't do stuff that could bring on injuries. So jet skis, motorcycles, stuff like that. So if they do get hurt doing one of those things, it could actually void their contract, and the team can get out from paying them if they wanted to. So Goff, just being the team player that he is, he just decided to put in a chipping green with an elevated porch where he can knock it off into the yard. It's pretty typical for that stuff to happen. It's just cool to see that, hey, he had all this land and he was going to put it in courts, but since he signed that contract, he could not, so he found a different use for it. And then the other player that they showcased was Andrew Whitworth, old man of the league. He's been in for about 15 years now. He's almost 40, and he plays left tackle. He's one of the better left tackles in the league. They just kind of touched on his bout with coronavirus earlier in the off season. Nothing too much of note there. They just kind of went on his backstory there. And then once you get into the field, Dante Dion, this guy, Dante Dion, super annoying. This guy is just, I see why he's been on and off the team. The coach probably just couldn't stand him and cut him. That's just my parting shot. I did not like him. He's very annoying. Just laughs at everything just for no reason. It's just wasn't too fond of him. And then the last part on the Rams before we touch on the Chargers is going to be the player of Oronoco. I don't freaking know. You guys try to let me know how you guys say this name. So his name is spelled first name Ogbonia, last name Okoronkwo. Talk about a mouthful. It's kind of like OCU Manura, or my personal favorite NFL name ever, Chris Fuamatamalafala. Just one of those unique names. It tends to seem if you have a unique name, you're more than likely destined to play in the NFL because there are some pretty unique names in the NFL. Other than that, there wasn't too much of note on the Rams that really happened. They kind of spotlighted a rookie linebacker who kind of looked lost. But other than that, there wasn't any big major storylines. So now on the Chargers side, they did spotlight Austin Eckler, who was an undrafted free agent rookie who made the team based off of his fourth preseason game. So he lit it up. He made a bunch of plays. He worked on special teams as well. So he made the team as a gunner on special teams and then worked his way into the starting rotation and eventually the starting running back. So they kind of touched on that, on how it's going to be a lot harder for these undrafted free agent rookies to actually make the team. So the Chargers actually have the longest active streak of undrafted rookies making the team at 23 seasons in a row. This year, I think they're still going to be able to continue that because we do have two undrafted fullbacks who are battling for the fullback position. I believe Anthony Lynn is going to bring a fullback with us into the actual season. We did lose Derek Watt to the Steelers. So I think one of them will make it. There's a position battle there. So I believe it will go to 24 years. It's just a cool little snippet. They should have put it in this actual episode, but they did not. I feel like if it was just one team, they probably would have touched on stuff like that. But since it's two teams, you got to bounce around and even everything out. So 24 years, it's probably going to happen with that rookie fullbacks making the team. Also, they highlighted a rookie running back that Anthony Lynn likes, but I don't believe we're going to be able to keep him on the roster because we already have three really good running backs. Josh Kelly, who we drafted, who's probably going to be our RB2, with Justin Jackson in the mix there as well, and then Austin Eckler as our starter. And he was weighted about 245. They want to get him down to 235 where he played in college last year. So the strength and conditioning coach was starting to work with him. And he told him, come on, man, this isn't a pie eating contest. And don't be eating all those tacos in your room. Get your mind right because Anthony Lynn was a running back in the NFL. So he is harder on the running backs than he is on any other position because that's what he knows. He was also the running back coach in Buffalo before he became the interim coach there when their coach got fired before they hired Sean McDermott. The other thing that they touched on was Seth Ryan, one of the position coaches, did have a false positive. So they kind of showed the behind the scenes on that and the NFL allowing you to do a rapid test followed by a standard test, and if both come back negative, you can actually come back to the facility without having to do the 14-day quarantine. But it's also pretty cool that they spotlighted him because he is one of the famous Ryans in the NFL of Rob Ryan, Rex Ryan, and Bob Ryan, their dad. That family all produces coaches. So now Seth Ryan, the Ryan lineage is going to continue in the NFL for a third generation. Another thing is they touched on the tracking bracelets that they have for the players to wear so they can do tracing. If somebody gets a positive test, you can trace who he's been around and have them tested as well. Mike Williams ran onto the practice field without his and had to run back in because he asked if he actually needed it. And somebody said, yes, you do. It's a $50,000 fine if you don't have it. So the NFL is pretty hardline on this. They want the COVID under control. They don't want all these positive tests running around ruining the season. So $50,000, I mean, for an NFL player is not much, but I mean, $50,000 is still a lot of money, especially in the preseason when you're just getting your daily stipend. You're not actually getting your game checks, which you don't get till week 1. And so Seth Ryan and Andrew Whitworth, another cool thing with them was they were on Hard Knocks in previous seasons. Seth Ryan when the Jets were on with his dad, Rex Ryan, and Andrew Whitworth way back in the day in 2009 with the Bengals. So it's pretty cool to just see those things pop back up. It's nice to see, like, hey, this guy's been in the league so long that we had him with Chad Johnson before he changed to Chad Ochocinco way back in the day. Other than that, I mean, they showed off Justin Herbert again. He is our big draft prospect. He is going to be the quarterback of the future after he takes the reins from Tyrod Taylor. I'm going to assume next year, because he does have a lot to learn this season, especially without there being an actual offseason and preseason. It's going to be hard for him to get those game reps. For the coaches to fully trust him. So I feel like if Tyrod doesn't get hurt, he will finish the season. Unless we go like 4-12, you'll definitely see him if we have a very bad losing record like we did last year. But I'm not predicting that with Tyrod. Yes, he's conservative. Yes, he doesn't like to take chances with the ball. He has one of the best touchdown to interception ratios just because he is so cautious with the ball. But the offense itself is one of the better offenses in the league. We have one of the best receiving cores. Top 2 were both 1,000-yard receivers last year. We have one of the best tight ends. Austin Eckler's coming into his own as a running back. And we have a better offensive line than we did last year. So I can see Tyrod Taylor actually doing pretty good. People want to kind of shit on him because of the Cleveland situation, but they don't realize that, hey, he was in all 3 of those games that he played. It was a missed kick that should have won the game for them in Pittsburgh, a missed kick in New Orleans, which ended up going into overtime, and then the concussion where he was battling with the Jets before Baker took over. Hard Knocks on their Facebook page did mention they were going to show us some Jack Boys content. The Jack Boys are the DBs of the Chargers. That's what they call themselves. Very, very stout on paper defensive backfield. Derwin James, who is an all-pro. Desmond King, who is an all-pro. Casey Hayward, who is one of the better underrated corners in the league. Then we also have Chris Harris Jr., who's coming over from the Broncos, who I believe saw something left in the tank. Yes, he's going to be on the other side of his career, but he's still a very good corner. They were saying that they were going to have a lot of content for them, but unfortunately, we just got a pretty terrible game of Cornhole. Now I'm starting to get the feeling that they're not really going to be breaking down players like they do in the past because they do have to balance 2 teams out. Maybe they're going to be, since it was a Rams-centric episode this week, it'll be more of a Chargers-centric one next week, but we will see. And I don't believe they're going to get down into those players and follow those. So we're not going to have those camp darlings like we had back in the day, which kind of sucks because I felt like if we were going to have a camp darling, it was going to be the kicker, Michael Badgley for the Chargers, because he does have a very big personality. But unfortunately, I don't see that happening this year. So we will continue with this process of watching and just kind of seeing some stuff and not really seeing Hard Knocks like usual. And hopefully this is going to be the last time that they do 2 teams. I hope they don't do this game because I'm not liking this. I like to kind of get more in depth, and they're not going to be able to do that with the 2 teams. So we'll continue to do the review. We'll continue to do the breakdowns. We'll continue to do any storylines that we see developing from Hard Knocks, but it doesn't seem like there's going to be much really for the Hard Knocks season, and it's kind of disappointing. So until next time, guys, I'll see you again, and that'll be it for us. See you next time.